I am going to reveal what the historical marker is going to say. Calvin Castine at the Chazy landing area on the 18th day of July 2009. A bright, beautiful, but also partially overcast with dark, threatening cloud type of day. It's a Saturday. And from 1905 to 1937, the Chazy Landing Auto Ferry. In 1905, Will Sweet designed and operated the first gas-powered ferry on Lake Champlain, named the Twins for his sons, Clinton and Gerald. In 1916, the larger Twin Boys was built and operated until 1937. This passage across northern Lake Champlain provided the key auto link between Montreal, New York City, and New England. And of course, it went from here over to Isle La Motte. And folks may think that Rouse's Point with the Jacques Rouse's ferry was the only ferry in the area, but those folks who lived in the early part of the 20th century were very well aware of this Twin Boys and the Twins ferry, and you often find postcards and whatever available on the internet with pictures of those ferry boats. Historian Bob Cheeseman's the one who alerted us to this. Bob is awfully busy today. We will try to get his attention sometime or another, but right now he is over there by the road with that yellow manila envelope in his hand, and he is very busy doing the last minute things that are going to happen here. In just a couple of minutes of our time, the Straw Hatters will be performing, and we'll be listening part of the time to them, and we're going to try to find somebody to talk to in addition to the listening to the Straw Hatters. So stick around. A big event in the history of Chazy. We'll have the welcome by Bob Cheeseman and an invocation by Reverend David Spalding. The Straw Hatters will play a couple of anthems that we might be familiar with. Introduction of guests will take place by Bob Cheeseman, unveiling of the marker by Maggie Sweet Dodds and David Sweet, greetings by Robert Weibel. He's a New York State historian and chief history curator at the New York State Museum. Remarks about Lake Champlain by Celine Paquette, Hudson Volton Champlain Quadricentennial Committee vice chairperson. Mary Lou Sweet's Memories of the Ferry by Maggie Sweet Dodds. The Isle La Motte Connections by Bob McEwen from the Isle La Motte Historical Society. D.T. Tremblay's Dreams of Champlain by Emily Castine. The Wind She Blow, and closing remarks by Bob Cheeseman. The benediction by Father Dean Bayshard, who is from Coopersville. And then we'll all join in for the singing of the God Bless America, led by Barbara Sweet. So that's what you have to look forward to. And we hope you'll stick around and enjoy this program here, this very important day in the town of Chazy. And it's a quadricentennial event. It's been quadricized, and they're doing this because of the quadricentennial, the 400th anniversary of Samuel D. Champlain coming down here and being the first European to have seen the body of water that is now his namesake. We have in front of us the extremely busy Robert Cheeseman, the town historian for Chazy. Bob, how long has this been in the planning?
Just about a year and a half. Well, the way it happened was that Isle La Motte had a marker that was in the works. David Sweet is talks to Isle La Motte quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
And he heard about it, so he called his cousin Maggie Sweet Dodds. And she got a hold of me and wondered if it would be possible. So I said, yes, I think it would. So I went to the Friends of the Library to talk to them about it because they had done quite a few markers in the village in the 60s. Well, they liked the idea, and they said that they would provide the marker for us. Well, then I thought, maybe we should have a little reception. So Maggie said that she would take care of the reception, which was very, very good. So one thing led to another, and here we are today with this event that's, I think, going to be a good one.
We don't get drenched.
Well, the weather, you got to be positive and have faith. The weather is going to be nice all afternoon.
Okay, great. Looks like quite a few speakers here. I just read the program. Looks like it's going to be at least a half-hour program, if not longer.
Yeah, about that. I'm hoping it won't go much more than that. It depends on how much my mouth runs, but we're still waiting for all the speakers. I see 2 of them are here. So as soon as they all get here, we're going to have the band's concert start.
Looks like the band is ready to start. But it's nice that this was able to happen in the quadricentennial year on the lake, and it turned into a nice quadricentennial event.
This is what we planned it for, and tying it in with Isle Mont, where Samuel de Champlain landed in 1609, it was a real easy thing to do. And the ferry docked on Isle Mont, just about a mile south of there.
Was this area where the
this is where
the ferry was?
Yep, this is where the Chazy landing ferry, the twins and the twin boys. The sail ferries landed south of here, directly across from the Isle of Mont docking site. And it was in a bay, but the sail ferries were not reliable for docking in the same place every time.
No.
So that's why that the powered ferry was the only way to go for the cars, for the autos.
It was a big jump up, and it looks like the second one, the twin boys, was bigger than the twins. Huh?
Oh yes, the twins would handle 5 cars, and the twin boys would take 15 touring cars. The twins was 60 feet long. The twin boys was 100 feet long.
And in addition to cars, it also bring commodities like crates of apples and hay and cattle and horses. And
that's right. There was everything moving at that time. So
what struck me when I read the literature you produced here is that the cost, $1.25, was it, for a car and a passenger back in
those
1900s,
days.
that was a...
Well, the twins started in 1905, and that price lasted for a good long time.
That was a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh yes.
So, but that time the people who had cars had money.
Yeah, they had to have to get across back and forth.
Yeah. All right. Anything else that you think we should know beforehand here, Bob?
Well, I'm just happy that everything has come together the way it has. This has been a team effort or a community project. We've got so many people that have helped on this.
You're not going to dare to start naming them.
Well, I can't name them individually, and I don't know if I can name all the organizations that helped out. But it's been a really great for me to work with all these people, and it's been gratifying to see how people take a hold and get behind you and help. Town of Chazy and all.
And they've certainly turned out today, and looks like traffic will be a little slow along the lakeshore today.
I think it will be, at least I hope it will be.
Okay.
And we certainly thank you for coming.
Glad to be here. Tomorrow I'll be in Isle Mont. They got special stuff going on over there tomorrow. And
well, that's good. It keeps you busy all the time.
Yeah, and a week from tomorrow I'll be back here in Chazy for the old home day, so never a dull moment.
Well, that's good. That keeps you young.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Yep, thank you.
Another busy person today, the town supervisor, Stab Spiegel. This has to be very gratifying, Stab.
It is. It's so much fun to see so many people from all over. Actually, we've got people from Vermont and New Hampshire, I understand, Chazy, Scioto, Ross's Point. What a crowd we have here today. It's beautiful.
And you're in charge of the weather?
I am in charge of the weather, and it's going to be sunny the whole time we're here today. I guarantee it.
He says that with a smile and a cloud over us.
Absolutely. But we have optimism. It's going to work. It's going to work.
Has the town council had anything to do with this, or has Mr. Cheeseman kind of been handling the works?
Mr. Cheeseman did a phenomenal job with this. He came to us and told us what he wanted to do as far as working with the public library to get the marker. Came and said, we need this, and this. And we were like, whatever you need, let's get it. Let's have a beautiful ceremony. It's a real historic event. I was a little bit too young to see the ferry boat, but I saw pictures of it. And it was really nice that actually the Lions Club came together and we made a float of the Twin Boys Ferry, which you'll probably see later on.
I saw it in the parade.
Yes, and it was beautiful, and we have it set up at Maggie's house today, one side of it, so that the people could see what it kind of looked like. And so I'd like to thank them for helping us out with the quadricentennial.
It's a little smaller than the original, though.
Oh, a little bit, but at least it gives them an idea.
Yeah. It just, and these events are so great, so good for a community to get together like this. I know we had our event over at Point of Fair, and a great turnout like this, and it's very gratifying.
It sure is. It's nice to be a part of U.S. history, and it's nice that people can come out and enjoy the day with us and see what it's all about.
Okay, anything else, Stop?
That's it. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you. All right, nice job there, as always, by the Straw Hatters. It seems like when I saw them in Rouse's Point a few weeks ago, they had different faces there. So there are a lot of familiar ones, a couple of similar ones that were there on at the Rouse's Point for the 4th of July ceremony, but a lot of different ones here today too. So they have a large group that they call on. We'll darken it just a bit so we can see the water, and this is the area where the twins and the twin boys came and went from 1905 to 1937, so it's very appropriate that this marker is going to be here, and this event is taking place here. taken the camera off the tripod just to give you a view down the Lakeshore Road here. Traffic is coming through. Looks like a Jeep or antique car. I can't quite tell for sure at this juncture. It looks like an antique, maybe even a Model A coming down. This is the turnout here. We just wanted to give folks who weren't here today an idea of the crowd that has gathered. It's nice to see people taking interest in their local history. And we have so much of our history that's tied to wars that it's a nice change, I guess, to have something that's important to history that doesn't involve conflicts. But this was a busy area. This is this whole area all the way down to where La Framboise, the La Framboise marker is down the road a piece, is the early part of the history of Chazy, because this was the way to get around. You came by water, so the developments all happened along the water, and Champlain Bay and other areas. This is all the area where the earliest history of Chazy would come from is right through here. And I've got to check. I wanted to remember to ask historian Bob Cheeseman that for years no one had put a first name with the French officer de Chazy, who died along what became known as the Chazy River. And no one had a first name for him, but in an article in the Lake Champlain Weekly this past week, they have a name for him. So I'm wondering if new information has come out regarding his name. If you look for the marker that mentions it, him dying, it doesn't have a first name. It just mentions his rank and the fact that he was killed there. But it's possible that they have discovered his first name, and we want to remember to verify that before we leave today. We checked with Bob Cheeseman and former town historian Tina Tremblay, and neither of them are aware that a name has been discovered for the Captain de Chazy. We are being blocked out right now. Some lady wants to get a picture of me here, I guess, because I'm trying to get a picture of Addie Shields. Actually, I think it's the young ladies over here. You got your Tremblay girl, you got your Olds girl, and you got your Latrimore girl here, all out dressed for the occasion, handing out the flyers for today, programs. Addie Shields is here, former county historian, 93 years old. And I'm not going to say young. She's 93 years old, and she is here. And thanks, I think, to Cortland Wood, who says he brought her along. That was nice of Cortland to do that. Addie, as you might expect, is the center of attention. The Straw Hatters are doing such a great job of providing background for this festivity, which is scheduled to start in just a few moments. And I'm hoping that people will not jump between me and the microphone as this event starts. Official quadricentennial photographer is Mr. Jack LeDuc, and he's lining up folks here to stand with one of the wooden cutouts that they have here gracing the town.
That's all named Bob Chisholm.
Here's the pose that'll be part of the official quadricentennial ceremony.
Good afternoon.
Big smile.
Neighbors, honored guests, and all of you historians that are here. It gives me a great pleasure to see such a good turnout. We will now have the Reverend David Spalding from the Chazy Presbyterian Church give us the invocation.
People don't usually clap when I pray, so shall we unite in prayer? We thank you, O God, for the gift of this beautiful day and this beautiful spot on the shores of Lake Champlain. We thank you for the gifts of community and family and nation. We thank you for the rich heritage we have received from those who have gone before us. We thank you especially for the Sweet family, for the twins and their contribution to the history of our town. We pray today that we might be good keepers of that heritage and good stewards of this lake and land, and that all that is said and done here today will be acceptable in your sight. We pray through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Spalding. Now, the Straw Hatters will play the national anthem of the United States and the anthem of Canada. Thanks so much to the Straw Hatters. You put on a very good concert, and we enjoyed it very much. got to let my brain catch up to the situation here. We have with us today the New York State historian, Robert Weibel. And the well, I know I'm drawing a blank here. The vice chairman of the Quadricentennial Commission, Celine Paquette. And the president of the Alamont Historical Society, Robert McEwen. And one lady that we always want with us, and that's here today, is the former Clinton County historian and still Beekmantown historian, Addie Shields. Addie has done more for the history of this area to preserve it and search it out than anyone I know. And I hadn't planned on saying this, but I'm going to say it, that she has forgotten more than most of us will ever learn, and she still knows more than we could ever hope to learn. I'm going to give you we also have people here from the Alberg and the Alamont Historical Society, the Rosses Point Historical Society. I'm looking around to make sure we've got an awful lot of the Clinton County town historians here, which is really gratifying to see. And we have the Clinton County historian along with representatives from the Northern New York American Canadian Genealogical Society. I didn't think I could get through that one. And hopefully there's people that are here. I'm sorry if I missed you, but there's just an awful lot of faces out there. I'll give you a brief history of the ferry business here. There was no regular ferry service in this area until that we know of, until 1852. And then McDonough McGregor from Albert, Vermont came with his wife and he purchased the White House. It's the first White House over here. And he conceived the idea of a ferry, so he built a flat bottom scow with sails and sweeps. A sweep is just a long oar, in case anybody's not sure. He operated that ferry for 8 years, and then he sold it to Robert Stockman, who had a grocery business in Chazy Landing. In 1868, Mr. Stockman sold to Stanley S. Niles, or not Stanley, Stephen S. Niles, who had been operating a ferry for some time down here. And at one time he owned the hotel, the Lake House, and the ferry called the Union at the same time. The next owner was Franklin Hill, and he was helped by his son John, and they both operated the ferry until 1903. Mr. Hill was remembered as a stern, weather-beaten man. He lived to be 90 and boasted that he had worn the same hat for 60 years. The sail ferry always used to land over in the bay that's called Sax's Bay, and that's directly across from the Alamont dock. Well, the sail ferry, depending on the wind and whatever else, would come to shore. It might be on the north end of the bay, it might be on the south or in the middle, and sometimes it wouldn't make it all the way to shore, so foot passengers had to be rowed in by boat. Wagons were backed off into the water and towed in, and animals a lot of times were just pushed off and had to swim in. And anything in a shipped in a barrel, they usually just dump the barrel in the lake and float those in. So anyway, the At that time, in late 1904, William Sweet was getting the permits and documents he needed to start a new ferry business on this side, and he bought the ferry, the sail ferry, in 1905. Mr. Sweet knew that the car or auto traffic was going to flourish, and he knew that you had to have a ferry boat that would come to shore in the same spot every time. So he designed and built the first gasoline-powered ferry to be on Lake Champlain, and that was the Twins. It was 60 feet long, 14 feet wide, and had a 4-foot hold, 4-foot deep hold. He operated that ferry until 1916, when he had designed and built a larger one, the Twin Boys. And both of these boats were named after his twin sons, Clinton and Gerald. And the boys helped him on the ferry when they got to be old enough. He then wanted some property across on Isle of Mont, so he bought a farm from L.D. Ann Rochester, and he sold all the farm to Mr. Grant, all except 200 feet on the shore for his dock. The strip in Isle of Mont, where he would land his boat, is just about 1 mile south of where Samuel de Champlain in July of 1609 landed at St. Anne's. And that is one good tie-in with Samuel. Mr. Sweet, I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh, there's one thing I forgot to tell you about the sail ferry. We'll back up a little bit. The sail ferry had another job besides ferrying. It was a rug cleaner. Mrs. Nelson Fisk and other ladies would have their rugs tied on ropes behind the ferry and dragged across the lake back and forth several times to clean them. So that is one of the interesting things that would happen with that ferry. Here's part of an article from the newspaper, the Champlain Counselor. This is when the Twins was built. Captain Sweet of Chazy Landing received last week a superb ferry boat, the Twins, from the boatyard of Averill and Clark in Champlain. The craft, which is the first one of its kind ever built here, is 60 feet long, 14 feet wide, and has a 4-foot deep hull. It is propelled by 2 double-cylinder gasoline engines developing 12 horsepower each, and the engines were built by D&M Covell Company of Canastota, New York. Commencing last spring, the boat left the boatyard on August 5th. It is now in active service on Lake Champlain, making regular trips between Chazy Landing and Isle of Mont, perfectly independent of the winds and their fickle disposition, and giving satisfaction to the captain and the public. This boat was built on the bank of the Chazy River across the road from Champlain Ferry Foundry at their boatyard. Being built on blocks and the side being parallel to the river, when it was completed, the blocks were removed, sliding the boat into the river and propelled by its own engines down the river and around to Chazy Landing. The capacity of this ferry was 5 autos. Auto traffic increased so that in 1916, a new 100-foot ferry, the Twin Boys, was put into service. This one was also designed by Mr. Sweet and built in Champlain. It could carry 15 cars, touring cars, This boat ran until 1937. The Sweets owned it until 1936. And then the boat was sold to a company on the Saco River in Maine. The largest number of cars crossing in one day was 431, and that was the Sunday before Labor Day, 1929. After, or famous people that crossed on these ferries, and I think takes in both of them, are Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Harvey Firestone, and I think maybe they were together going on some of their camping and fishing and hunting trips. Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt, both as the wife of the governor and First Lady. Gene Tunney, world heavyweight champion, called from Plattsburgh and demanded that the ferry be held for him, which it was not. Theodore Roosevelt, on his way to visit Mrs. Nelson Fisk on one of his trips to Isle of Man. Many people in the United States know Chazy because they crossed the ferry here at Chazy. And all the years of operation, there were never any serious accidents or loss of life or property. Now, I could stop here, but I'm going to keep going, even though it may be painful. There were good times and funny situations on the ferry. One such was Al Davenport's successful ruse to get a boatload of hydrophobic gypsies to pay their fare. Davenport, after cutting the engines in mid-lake, waved a wrench and shouted wildly, "You pay up or I'll go below and pull the plug." A notorious stingy man from Alberg, astounded at the price of passage, once paid Gerald while grumbling, "No wonder Christ walked on water." Then there was the time that when Gerald, as a joke, told a customs inspector who happened to be on board that a bootlegger they both knew was due on that ferry trip with a load. Embarrassment was acute and mutual when the smuggler coincidentally made the crossing. There was a serious time too. One trip to Isle of Man side, pilot Jeff Fleury remarked to Gerald that the famous boat Ticonderoga was making a wide turn as it left St. Anne's Shrine. "Watch her," he said. "If she don't swing back soon, she'll be up on Ferry all Reef." She did not swing back quick enough. Although it was a busy 4th of July, the ferry ceased its schedule runs until the steamer's passengers had all been transferred to shore. When the owners of the tie, the Delaware and Hudson Railroad Company, asked for the rescue bill, Will Sweet asked only enough to cover the business he had lost during the rescue hours. The grateful railroad could only conceive that he could have charged almost any sum. They doubled the amount when they sent in the check. Repaired and refloated, the grand old sidewheeler went back to work. Today, it is a featured exhibit in Shelburne Museum, Shelburne, Vermont. A fate quite different from its rescuer, the twin boys. I have a poem. Told you this is going to be long. It's written by Daniel D. Tremblay, better known as Baptiste. And this is one of his French dialect poems. And it is about the Twin Boy Ferry. A ferry boat on Lake Champlain that everyone knows well is past the lake and back again more times than I can tell. And if the wind she blow like hell or she don't blow at all, that ferry boat is on the job, both summer, spring, and fall. Twin Boy, they call that ferry. That's funny name for boat. He's long and strong and big and wide. The best one, that's the float. From 7 in the morning until the sun go down, that boat is passing forth and back. That give her some renown. Frank Horscher is the pilot man that make the boat go straight. Al Davenport, the engineer. Clint Sweet, the second mate. Sweet Gerald is the cashier and make some awful fuss. If everyone don't pay their fare, the dirty long-haired cuss. Jack Morris is the bartender. He sell the nice cold drink. And when some girl come on the boat, Jack give them all a wink. She is damn nice little feller, and the girl all like her well. And for the flirting with the pretty girl, Jack beats the very hell. Baptiste, she is the newsboy and sell the little book. Look out for that old gray-haired cuss. They say she is a crook. I have tell you about this ferry boat and all about the crew. And if you ever come aboard, they will take care of you. You know, this whole event has been a community effort. I have had a great response from everyone, and no matter how much or how little they did, everyone stepped up and tried to help, and they did help. And I had one man that was with me from the start. He gave me an awful lot of ideas. He would correct my spelling and all the things that I didn't have right on these things that I would try to produce in print. So he has been my rock, shall we say, and I certainly appreciate it, and I want to commend him. John Patterson, would you come up here, please? John, there's a little memento of our appreciation.
Undeserved, but this is a great event, and you have a wonderful town historian. It's been my privilege to work with Bob, and before Bob with Tina Tremblay, who's hiding back here, who have done a wonderful job of preserving the heritage of this town that we really all love. I wish I knew it even better, but Bob straightens me out from time to time.
John, you've done a good job for me. Now, again, I have to see where I am. Now we will unveil the marker so that we can all get a look at it. David Sweet and Maggie Sweet Dodds, will you come up here, please? If you're not already here. Okay, we'll do it. We unveil and we dedicate this marker to William Nelson Sweet and his innovative thinking and ability to get things done to make things better.
Thank you all very much. The whole town has been in on this, and it just shows you what a great town we grew up in. And Bob has done so much work, I can't tell you. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Maggie. And now for a great treat. Right? At least I think it's a great treat, and I'm sure all the rest of you will. we have the New York State historian, Robert Weibel, who will give us greetings. And
I want to thank Bob and also my longtime friend John Patterson for making sure that I got here today. John and I should tell you, did a lot of work together many years ago in Pennsylvania, running the historical marker program there, and perhaps later, depending on whether that bartender you mentioned is still on the job, we could tell you some of those stories. But I do want to congratulate Dick Sweet and Mary Sweet Dodds and the rest of the community for arranging this event. It is the kind of thing I'd like to see duplicated all over New York. One of the really nice things about having this job, which may be the best job certainly that I've ever had, and maybe the best job anybody's ever had, is I get to go all around the state and to see New York's extraordinary resources. And I find that when I speak, I often say that it's so good to be out of Albany. And I have to be careful about that these days, because not too long ago I was speaking somewhere else, and I won't say where. Somebody said, well, you know, it would be good if some other people were out of Albany, too. I haven't been here long enough to know what they were talking about, so I'll just say that it is great to be here. And especially for an event like this, historical markers I've found are more than just pieces of metal with words on them. They're really quite magical, because they transform the landscape from something that you can see with your eyes to something that you can see with your imagination. In just the brief time that I've been here, I got a brief tour of the area and found every place you look is one beautiful spot after another. This is a beautiful spot. But now I think with this marker, people will have the opportunity to see not only what's here, but what used to be here. Bob Cheathan was describing for me a little bit earlier the dock that used to be here, and the boat and everything that was going on in previous years. And I was pretty sure, as he was describing, he could look out there and see that in his eyes. And I think this marker is an invitation for everyone else to do the same thing, and that's the transformative power of history. I am so pleased that we have yet another marker like this to invite people to look at the past and to appreciate it. And as a New York State historian, I congratulate you and wish you well. Thank you very much.
thank you very much, Bob. We are standing on the lawn of Charles and Linda Cody, and we can't let anything go any further without saying how grateful we are that they allowed us to put the marker on their property. And also for me, I can't thank the Friends of the Library enough for providing this marker. It is one great step to helping preserve the history of this town. We now have Celine Paquette, the Vice Chair of the Quadricentennial Commission, and she's going to, she told me that she only had a 45-minute speech, so I told her that would be okay.
Thanks, Bob. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Hudson, Fulton, Champlain Quadricentennial Commission, that we lovingly call the Quad, I bring you greetings today. First, I want to applaud Bob for all the work he has done to put this program together. Bob is one of the hardest working historians in Clinton County. He attends workshops, college presentations, seminars. No matter where you go, you can count on Bob being there. Chazy is indeed fortunate to have such a devoted person. Congratulations, Chazy, for having this event today. When we started planning for the quadricentennial year, we worked with all the communities along Lake Champlain, encouraging them to commemorate the arrival of Champlain on this beautiful lake that he named for himself. And I look out over here, and I wouldn't be surprised, it was probably at this point that he said, I'm naming this after myself. This is so beautiful. Chazy was one of the first towns to pass the 400 resolution that we sent to the state. And I commend you for your willingness to hold an event that has historical importance for your community. I am not going to comment on the motorized ferry crossing. Bob did a good job of that. He's much more knowledgeable. However, I can tell you that after 7 years of working on promoting quadricentennial events, that I feel quite capable of giving praise to the people who have planned programs and events for this year, and in most instances without funding. I want to thank the Chazy Friends of the Library for the marker. That takes special people, and Chazy is a town with special people. As the quadricentennial year moves on, I look forward to continuing my association with Chazy and more historical projects. You're not done, Bob. I want to take advantage of this event today to tell you about our major legacy event that will occur this year. You are all invited to Crown Point on September 19th when we rededicate the Champlain monument that was erected as a result of the 1909 celebration, and the Rodin sculpture that was a gift from France and is part of that monument. The date is September 19th. Best wishes on your special day. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. I just saw Frank Papps come up here. He's a Lake Champlain captain and probably ocean captain, as far as I know. But Frank, would you like to just say hello?
Yes. It pleases me that honor is given to a fellow captain who is the innovator, who started things on Lake Champlain and made them work. To that end, part of the quadricentennial celebration is WOW. That means working on water. We're celebrating 400 years working on water, and I have some of these brochures. I'm going to be skippering a 260-foot floating concrete bulk carrier that's been converted into a floating museum. It's got canal history, it's got local history, it's got the history of New York State. What we did up here, stone from the quarry over at Isle of Mott, stone from the quarry down in Willsboro, all these products made New York City, Philadelphia, and all the coastal cities, thanks to the New York State Canal. And I'm proud that New York State selected me to pilot the boat up through here. We're stopping in Plattsburgh on August 11th and 12th, Burlington 14th and 15th, and we're going to be at the Crown Point Lighthouse on August 19th. So I invite you all to meet us, come aboard. Not only will we have the Day Peckinpah, the 260-foot freighter, but we'll have about 5 or 6 tugboats with us also. They'll be open to the public, and you can see how we live on the water. And I think the town of Chazy did a marvelous job with the marker and with honoring Captain Sweet and his family to carry this on. I was proud that my first engineer on the Juniper was Gerald Chapman, who was in the brochure that they sent me about this event, and he was the engineer for Captain Sweet also. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. I've got it in my calendar to make sure to go see the Pick and Paw. That is going to be a great event. Now, we will have the memories of Mary Lou Sweet read by her younger sister, Maggie Sweet Dodds.
Wow is right. I would like to also say, you know how you get nervous and you forget about things you wanted to say. I'm going to have this chance to thank the Friends of the Library for this beautiful sign, and also to the Codys, my dear cousins, who provided the location for it. And I will read my sister's memories, and I would just say that the sister who she refers to, our sister Harriet, died 2 years ago, but I'm sure she's up there somewhere thinking it's great. Now this is Mary Lou speaking. I was born February 23rd, 1927, Mary Elizabeth Sweet to Gerald Shelley Sweet and Margaret Kennedy. A year later, on March 24th, my sister Harriet Alice was born. The first 10 years of my life, our family lived in the White House, which still stands today, 200 feet from the ferry dock on which the Twin Boys ferry made its trip across Lake Champlain. This part of the world was called Chazy Landing. It was a magical place to grow up. The lake was our playground. From there we could see the ferry boat, the Twin Boys, where my father, Captain Sweet, worked. And looking back on this time, certain memories unfold. The ferry boat ran on signal from New York State to Isle of Mont, Vermont. Not many children today are able to witness where their father works. We could do so. The ferry dock was paved with crushed stone. In the early spring, when the water was high, the ferry docked closer to the main road. Later in the summer, as the water lowered, the road extended farther out to take advantage of deeper water. On the south corner of the dock was a little shack, longer than a fishing shanty. Here one could buy candy, and I remember chocolate bars and lollipops and sodas. The sodas were in small bottles, not cans that we see today. The ferry boat was painted white with high green railings on the side. Lifeboats were positioned, one on each side. A sign, Twin Boys, was attached to the railing. The name Twin Boys referred to my father, Gerald, and his twin brother, Clinton. These twins were born to William Sweet and Alice Ladd. One of my fondest memories was my father, Captain Sweet, holding my hand as we walked to the ferry dock. I was probably 4 years old at the time. I remember looking up at him and thinking how handsome he looked. He was dressed in white slacks, white shirt, tie, and navy jacket. He wore his captain's hat and was smoking a pipe. My father would leave early in the morning to work on the ferry. He carried a black lunchbox. The men that worked on the boat were Alan Davenport, whose son is sitting right there, Gerald Chapman, and Ralph Paquette. They were a happy crew. As a child, I remember thinking Gerald Chapman had a beautiful smile. Can you imagine a more wonderful job to be on that ferry? My father would move quickly, directing cars onto the boat, collecting fares, steering the boat all day in his work. I remember him saying it was like driving a car. He felt he could drive the boat by himself. The law required a licensed pilot, engineer, and a deckhand. Making the daily runs on the boat was a white-haired man, small in stature. He was dressed like my father. Baptiste was from Isle of Mont. And, I'm sorry, and wrote poetry, as we know. I would watch as he handed out his books of poetry to passengers. They sold for $1 apiece. Did he write the jingle? You will not drown in Lake Champlain if you stay on the shore. Or was it perhaps one of my father's sayings? Although my father took his responsibilities seriously, I do remember seeing him dancing a jig on the boat and telling a tale. He told the story of one man grumbling over the price of passage, and the man retorted, "No wonder Christ walked on the water." And the fare, I've been told, was $1 for a car and 25 cents for a passenger, and the maximum charge being $2. Harriet and I could swing on the hammock on our porch and look out on the lake. It's 2 houses down here. And music would drift out the living room window as my mother listened to the radio. We would watch the ferry travel through the water. How long did it take from one side to the other? We didn't know. The boat ran on signal. A white flag would go up, denoting a car or cars were ready to be picked up. I wished I could tell how big that flag was. One beautiful day, the lake was like a mirror. My dear mother packed a picnic lunch for our family. We were to go across the lake on the ferry and eat lunch with my father on the Vermont side. Harriet and I sat in the lifeboat boxes along the side of the boat. Life preservers were in these boxes. We loved watching the water, thinking the ferry made wonderful patterns as it traveled through the water. I do not remember how many cars were on the boat that day. When the cars left the ferry, we walked up the hill and found a place to have our lunch. There were no cars ready to go across. Mother opened the picnic basket. My dad stretched out his head on Mother's lap. What we had for lunch, I'm not sure. I just remember feeling all was right with the world. The weather was not always pleasant as the ferry made its way across the lake. I remember one stormy day blowing, dark sky, lightning, thunder. The waves were high. My mother gathered my sister and I on the couch in our living room where we could see the ferry. My mother's arms were about us. My father's sister, Ada, appeared. She always did so when there was a storm. The ferry landed safely. We were probably 5 or 6 at the time. I do not recall as a child the ferry not running because of mechanical difficulties. Each spring it was checked over and painted. When the ferry was sold, I was 10 years old, and I recall the feeling of sadness I had when I watched it travel south. It was the end of an era. Now at 82, I look at my childhood and recall with great pride of my grandfather William Sweet's vision to build 2 ferry boats, the twins and the twin boys. And I have great pride in my father, who started working on the first ferry at 16, later became a licensed pilot and stayed with the career to 1937. It has been my belief that a happy childhood can help you weather many a storm. A happy childhood I did have.
Yes?
I can remember when I was a kid, my brother and I used to ride our bicycles over here onto the ferry, go across to Isle of Mott, ride our bicycles around Isle of Mott, back on the ferry boat with our bicycles, come back, go back home. That's how old I am.
Well, thank you. That was Pete Hubble. Yes, and we have, we have pictures of a group of girls from the LaPlante family album. They're displayed over in our display area. And they used to do much the same thing, only without bicycles. They take their lunches over and just have a great time and then ride back. Maggie said something about forgetting things, and I must apologize to Al Davenport and Shirley Chaffee, his sister. After the poem, I wanted to introduce them and say that Al was here and Shirley was here, descendants of the engineer. So I thank Maggie for reminding me. Now we will have Bob McEwen from the president of the Isle of Mott Historical Society say a few words.
Bob, you have a wonderful event here. It's been absolutely marvelous, and it's marvelous to have it as part of the Quadricentennial, and I'm pleased to be here from Isle of Mott. I'd like to cast a picture for you because it's always hard as times pass, and times pass more quickly, it seems, lately. And you need to go back to the middle of the 1800s. And what you had at that time was the railroads pushing up both sides of the lake, but you didn't have any bridges across Lake Champlain. Crown Point Bridge did not exist. The bridge at Rouse's Point did not exist. And as you've already heard, the ferries tended to be sail ferries, which were unpredictable and certainly not suitable for automobiles at that time. So then you come up on the early 1900s, and we had Henry Ford and his cohorts developing automobiles, and if anybody could see the future, some said it will never take off. You know, it's one of those fads, you'll never have automobiles. But nevertheless, they grew like topsy. And as a side note, my father escaped from the farm to be a chauffeur. And in the early 1900s, his job for the next 20 or 30 years was to drive the rather wealthy Miss Brayton all around New England in a large Packard or whatever they had at that period of time. And of course, the thought at that time was that ordinary gentlemen, and certainly not ladies, could not drive a complicated machine like a automobile. You certainly needed a chauffeur to do that sort of thing for you. So there you were when the automobiles came along, and there was no good way to get across Lake Champlain. You either had to go way up into Canada, or you had to start down in Massachusetts somewhere and come up on the other side. And here was this large body of water, but several islands and an inland sea over to our east. Isle La Motte and Chazy were, and this has been spoken about by a number of people when I talked to them, they were sister communities. There was more communication across Lake Champlain in this area between these two towns, Isle La Motte and Chazy. They came back and forth, on the ice, they rowed across, they intermarried. There's people that will tell you, oh yes, I used to live across in Chazy. There's people from Isle La Motte that say I used to visit over in Chazy all the time. And this was the nature of this little gap of water here. It was very, very interconnected. In 1882, the town of Isle La Motte completed their bridge and causeway. It was bonded by the town and with some individual contributions, and that eliminated the ferry at that point that went over to Alberg Tongue. And we then had a bridge that went across from Isle La Motte to Alberg. The wisdom of Isle La Motte was to make that a toll bridge. And you see what I'm leading to here, that you came down to this spot here with your automobile, you boarded, you grumbled, you paid your toll, you went across, right straight across to the landing there at the foot of School Street, you got off, you drove up the hill, and you stopped at the large stone hotel, the Hill House, and you had lunch. You then started out and headed for where the road led you, and all of a sudden you were confronted with another toll to get off of Isle La Motte. This amount of toll, as I'm told, in the early 1900s, see the bridge was there before that, but the automobiles brought the money. This amount of toll helped to keep our taxes almost non-existent. And of course, to complete that story, in 1944, the state took over that bridge, eliminated the toll, and made it a state road. And our taxes went up from there on. One of my questions that I've asked a number of people before I came here, as I was thinking about what I might say, is where did the cars go from then? then how did they proceed? Because a lot of people were coming here planning to go into New England, to New Hampshire, to the coast of Maine, et cetera, and so on. And you're suddenly confronted not only with our toll bridge, but you're confronted with a couple of more gaps of water over there. How did you get to North Hero? Did you get across the gut where we have the drawbridge now by ferry, or was there some bridge there before? And what about the bridge to Swanton from Alberg Springs? I think that was built later. So I don't know that, and I would love to know to complete this sort of story of how you proceeded east to west here. If none of those were suitable for automobiles at that time that we're talking about, the early 1900s, you were probably faced with then going up into Canada and proceeding around Missisquoi Bay and coming down in St. Johnsbury or Island Pond or something like that before you crossed the Connecticut River. So if I've given you a picture of how things proceeded, especially how they proceeded for us on Isle La Motte, I am pleased to do that. I have a couple of things I would like to read to you that I think you'll find interesting. In 1882, as I mentioned before, the first team crossed our bridge, and the bridge was then, that was in August 1882, and our bridge was then open to traffic. And the ferry boat that we used to have there was then discarded. In 1906, two automobiles passed through the island last week, frightening the horses. There should be a law passed not allowing automobiles on our country roads. 1913, 2,250 cars crossed this year, in addition to the town cars, and total receipts were $1,748. And finally, in 1916, the toll keeper's records, and by the way, as an aside, we have in our Historical Society one of the books that was kept by the toll keeper, marking down every vehicle, every horse, every person that passed during a certain period of time for that particular book. And anyway, in 1916, he collected $3,346, and there were 10,126 cars that went across. So you see, we had a rather profitable business thanks to your ferry here starting in Chazy Landing, and we thank you very much for that. Bob, it's been wonderful. Thanks for inviting me. Best of luck in all of it.
Well, thank you very much, Bob, for coming, and we enjoyed listening to what you had to say. We now will have Emily Castine. She has a beautiful poem written by D.P. Champlain, and it's not in Emily?
No.
I have to preface this by saying I'm so glad I fell in love with Chazy when I was vacationing at age 8, and I feel blessed to have lived here all of my adult life. This poem, Dreams of Lake Champlain, is dedicated to our Jack. As I sit here thinking in my easy chair today, my thoughts, they wander eastward to my home so far away. I have a lonely feeling, and I long to see again the green hills of old Vermont and dear old Lake Champlain. For 70 years and better, I have dwelt upon its brink, and as I sit here dreaming, I close my eyes and think. I can see its waves come rolling in and break upon its shore. I can hear the music of its sullen roar. I can see them rolling upon this pebbled beach, vying with each other as to how far they can reach. And as I watch them coming, I see one big high flyer that washes up the sand and shells, still a little higher. And then my thoughts, they wander to a lovely summer night, when the clear full moon is shining and not a cloud in sight. I can see the long deep shadows cast by the tall pine trees, far out upon the waters, undisturbed by any breeze. I can see sweet auto ferry as it skims across the lake, laden deep with motor cars of every kind and make. It is known from coast to coast, the whole country o'er, as the Chazy landing ferry, and it plies from shore to shore. I can see a storm approaching from the Adirondack heights, and I close my doors and windows and close my shutters tight. Now it strikes upon the water, I can hear the thunder crash, and the rain comes down in torrents with the lightning's vivid flash. And the wind is in its fury, I can hear it lash and roar, and a tall pine tree comes crashing to the ground quite near my door. It lasts but a few moments, and then it passes on. The sun comes out in splendor, and the old storm king is gone. Now as I look upon the lake, through foliage so green, I can see its glassy surface, not a ripple to be seen. And as I look upon it through the cedar, pine, and birch, I can see its surface broken by schools of yellow perch. I can see the ancient pinflack sailing fast before the breeze. I can hear the boatmen talking, parlez-vous, sir, if you please. I can also hear them singing songs of their native land, but they sing in foreign language, and I do not understand. I can hear an old loon calling when the shadows are long, and another sound I love, the nightingale's sweet song. And awakened from my slumbers, what is that sound I hear? The whistle of the whippoorwill is still ringing in my ear. Away across the water, over on the New York side, there is an old stone house where my parents did reside. It was there that I was born in 1849. I can see dimly through cedar, birch, and pine. These thoughts and others rush through my brain today, and as I sit here thinking of my home so far away, but spring is fast approaching, then I hope to see again the green hills of old Vermont and dear old Lake Champlain. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Emily is part of the Chazy Friends of the Library. Anybody want to hear that wind she blows? Okay, I'll try not to murder it. It starts out, the wind she blow on La Champlain, by she blow some more. From 7 in the morning until dark at night, this ferry boat she make his trip to everyone's delight. He run from Chazy Landing across to Ilamont, that pretty isle in the lake, one old historic spot. One day last fall, she's passing in the middle of the lake, and a northwest gale from Canada is following her wake. The wave is roll on top the deck, the thunder flash and roar. The ferry boat is have tough time, about halfway from the shore. The wave is jump on top the deck, the wind is blowing fast. It looked like this old ferry boat is going to bust at last. The crew put on some life preserve to help herself afloat when there ain't no more chances left on this old ferry boat. One fat old maid from Boston is rolling on the deck. A big wet wave is come and wet him to the neck. And he say, "Sherry, Captain, whatever shall I do? It's easy to get drowned, but it is hard to part from you. If you put your arms around me and only save my life, I promise you on top my soul, I will be your wife. Impossible, the captain say, it can't ever be. Already I have one dear wife that live along with me. Then he put on some life preserve and jump on top the light. She yelled, goodbye, Captain, I'm drowning for your sake. And then the captain and the crew, to save himself from drown, he swim on top the shore before the boat go down. But this old Ferry, he never drowned, but float upon the sand. Next day was running forth and back from island to mainland. Next morning, very early, about 5:30 or 4, the dead corpse of the poor old maid is washed on top the shore. Note all old maids from Boston that read this little poem, don't make love to the captain, for she's got one wife at home. And suppose the wind blow hurricane, and then she blow some more, you no get drowned on Lake Champlain, you stay upon the shore. Well, this has been a pleasure for me, and I thank you all for coming, and I hope that you'll all join us over at the reception at the Red House, and continue our conversations, and let us get a chance to talk to more of you. Right now we will have Father Dean Bayshard of the Society of Jesus do for the benediction. Father Bayshard is a Chazy Central Rural School graduate. Father Dean.
I invite you to stand as you are able. Good and gracious God, creator of heaven and earth, and Lord of our history, we beseech you to bless this marker and to send down your Holy Spirit upon all of us gathered here to honor the long history of Chazy Landing. As we recall with gratitude the courage and self-sacrifice, the industry and foresight of those who established and developed this landing as a place of transport and commerce, we ask you, Lord, to guide and to protect all the members of this community, and especially those responsible for the erection of this monument. Inspire all of us to find clear and compelling signs of your unfailing providence in the beauty of this lake, in the fertile soil of this valley, in the kindness and industry of our neighbors, and in the safe landing of all who come to these shores from near and far, those whom we will seek to welcome in your name. And we ask this through Christ our Lord.
Thank you, Father. Now we will have Barbara Sweet come up, and we will have her sing God Bless America. Barbara, would you want to do
Before I sing, I can't go anywhere without talking. You know that. I just wanted everybody to know that Ada Sweet, who was the sister of the twins, was the first woman in Clinton County to have her driver's license. The other thing was that little did I know 42 years ago that I would be marrying into such a historic family. So this is very, very wonderful for me. So if I get verklempt, that's okay. Now, everybody, you've all been sitting there, listening to everybody else. I'm singing the intro, and then I expect you to join me, okay? Ready? While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us pledge allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful to a land so fair as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. Everybody ready? God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with gold. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bob.
This concludes our dedication ceremony. Hopefully all of you will proceed south to the Red House.
No, they have to go do refreshments, but we can do this.
Thank you all for coming. It's been a great day, and keep the good weather coming. Thanks a lot.
Excellent job. Our congratulations to Bob Cheeseman and all the folks who helped him to put today's event on. Well, we started with reading the inscription on the historical marker. We're going to close by also reading that inscription. 1905 to 1937, Chazy Landing Auto Ferry. In 1905, Will Sweet designed and operated the first gas-powered ferry on Lake Champlain named the Twins for his sons Clinton and Gerald. In 1916, the larger Twin Boys was built and operated until 1937. This passage across northern Lake Champlain provided the key auto link between Montreal, New York City, and New England. Not sure why they couldn't go north through Champlain to get to Montreal, but this is what the plaque says, and it's dedicated here by the Chazy Friends of the Library. So another outstanding job, and Hometown Cable is always proud to be there and to cover and record these events for posterity. And we want to remind you that this is viewer-supported local television. We certainly don't get anywhere near the support we should have to continue to cover these events. And if you can find a way to help support us, our address is 1477 Ridge Road in Champlain, 12919, and our email address is hometowncable@yahoo.com. We are available as video on demand at hometowncablenetwork.com and also at plattsburgh.com. So thanks for watching, and for those of you who have caught on and who support our continuing efforts. Hometown Cable Television, that we think you'll agree is worth your support.